Okay. Okay, so find a comfortable seat, which might mean elevating your sit bones on a bit of a blanket, because you don't want to spend all of your efforts trying to hold yourself upright from the front of the hips. Feels comfortable to close your eyes. You can close your eyes or set your gaze softly at one spot. And you can reach down and kind of grab a sit bone, and you're going to drag it back and then diagonal behind you. And notice how that feels. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So if you can just go ahead and reach up there and grab the inner edge of your sit bone, and then you'll just drag it back and then diagonally behind you. So you're broadening your base, which should make this feel a bit more comfortable. And then just start to check in. Notice the sounds around you, outside, upstairs, downstairs. Feeling of the air and the space that you're in. Relax and open your ears. And then notice the space you take up, boundaries of your skin, the weight of your bones, your imprint on the floor. As you feel into the imprint on the floor, can you let the ground hold you up? So giving your weight to the support beneath you. And then start to check in with your internal experience, everything under the skin. Maybe the parts of you that feel like they expand beyond the skin, your energetic body. And let your attention drop in even further, feeling into the center of the rib cage, between the lungs. And if there's an intention or a dedication you'd like to set for practice, do that now. And we're going to start to deepen the breath. Sometimes when I'm practicing, it doesn't feel right to start really deep breathing until I start moving around. So if you need to ease into it, that's fine. But it can be helpful to imagine that you're filling out from the bottom to the top. So your inhale starts at the base of the spine, center of the pelvic floor, and then fills up. And lately I've been playing around with, on the exhale, rather than letting it drop back down, can the exhale then continue out through the crown of the head? And how does that feel? It might be helpful to close the back of the throat a bit, coming into Ujjayi breath. And we'll come into a bit of a twist. You're going to turn to your left. If the floor feels far away, put a block under your left hand. You're going to think about sliding your right back waist around towards your left knee and sliding your left back waist broad behind you. And it might feel nice to stay upright here, or you can start to fold forward, walking your hands out to the side. And just notice if you've lost any of the connection to the ground under your right sit bone, and then reestablish that if you have lost it. You might even imagine that you could root your right sit bone past your blanket, past the mat, past the floor. Maybe that right elbow dips down. Maybe that left arm straightens any amount. And you're still feeling your breath from the bottom to the top, and perhaps your exhales continue up, out through the crown of your head. Can your breath help make this any more comfortable by feeling out into your side ribs? And then we'll come back up and we'll just fold forward. So any amount, keeping your sit bones grounded. You can imagine your tailbone rooting into the floor behind you. And rather than letting this fold really close off and shorten the front side of the body, can you feel like the whole front side of your spine, starting really with the front of the sacrum, the front of your lumbar spine, can crawl forward, can slide forward. Even as you keep those sit bones and your tailbone rooted down. And you're going to follow your breath to the bottom of the next exhale. And then let the inhale roll you back up. If you'd like to change the cross of the legs, you can do that. And we'll take the twist to the other side. So your left back waist is trying to wrap around towards your right knee. Your right back waist broadens out behind you. And it might be really interesting to stay here. Maybe you start to walk the hands off to the side and into a bit of a forward fold. Maybe your left elbow dips down and your right arm starts to straighten. And if your left sit bone moved away from the floor, root it back down. Even if that pulls you out of where you went a little bit, can you reestablish that root? And then notice where your attention is. So I always like to start out kind of acknowledging that there's all this stuff happening around me, especially living in the city. And then really intentionally kind of pull all of that attention back in. And there's a whole limb of the practice of yoga that's dedicated to that kind of drawing back in. It's called pratyahara. Follow your next exhale to the bottom of the breath, and then inhale to bring you back up to center. And so as we move through our physical practice, you're gonna have to kind of continue to pull yourself back in. You're gonna get distracted. Go ahead and take your blanket, fold it up. We're gonna do a roll for the back. If you don't have a blanket handy, you can use a pillow, you can use a block. Although I think the blanket's a bit kinder unless you have a a foam block. And we're gonna put that right in the upper back. And you might like a block behind the head. And so in the moving around and the setting up the props, you kind of get pulled out of your internal experience again. So as you start to settle, you go back in. And there are days when, if you're really stressed, your internal experience can, maybe not be a place that you want to hang out in. So if that's the case, just setting your gaze softly at one spot. Or perhaps instead of feeling what's going on under your skin, really noticing how the floor holds you, how the blanket holds you. Can you relax your neck and release the weight of your head? If not, maybe just elevate that block a bit. Can you release the weight of your hips? If not, knees bent is a nice option. If it's still too much with knees bent and you're just laying here bracing against the back bend, maybe unroll the blanket a bit. If you imagine the breath filling from the bottom to the top and your exhales moving out through the crown of the head, it can really help to relax your spine in this longer position. Could you imagine any tension in your armpits, in your chest, melting out and flowing over the collarbones towards the floor? And then you could take your arms up towards the ceiling, palms facing forward. And really reach up so the shoulder blades chase your hands. And then any amount, we'll take the arms up alongside the ears. If it doesn't feel safe for the shoulders, skip it. And even if your hands can come all the way and just rest on the ground, can you let them just hover just a bit? And imagine you were holding a block. Or if you know that sensation when you put your hand out the window when you're driving a car and get that resistance. Can you imagine both of your hands out a car window right now? And you can take the arms back down by your sides. We're going to move the blanket about halfway down the back. So right around the bottom of the rib cage. So this is where the lumbar and thoracic spine meet. That's where your diaphragm is. And so I find, this is usually not so comfortable, but what can really help is if you move your breath out to the sides. Can you move your rib cage laterally with your breath? And if you try and you're like, I don't know if I can do that, you can even just put your hands there. And can you move your hands with your breath? Can you release the weight of your head? Can you release the weight of your hips? And move the blanket into the lower back. The curve of the lumbar spine, which loves to back bend, but often overdoes it because the rest of the back doesn't get involved in play their parts. So if this feels like too much, you can move the blanket down so that it catches the top of the sacrum. So like right at the top of the back of the hips. You likely don't need anything behind your head here. And could you imagine any tension, any holding in the lower belly and the lower back, kind of pouring out through the groins towards the floor? And then notice where your attention is. Often when we're uncomfortable, we'll daydream or worry or just anything inside the head to be not here, which is a very human thing to do, but it can be interesting to see where you go. When press into the feet, we're going to move the blanket under the hips and hug the knees in. Take that slow, especially if the lower back was not super happy there. Go ahead and cross your right ankle over your left knee, with the hips still up like this. And then just give your foot a little massage. Hopefully gravity is doing most of the work here, holding your legs in place. You can give some attention to all 5 toes. Hold them a little bit, make them a little twist. And then maybe thread your fingers in between your toes. I know this is a crowd pleaser. Maybe wiggle your fingers around a bit. Move the ball of the foot around. Give a little extra attention to that spot where the heel and the arch come together. So if your bones are lined up right, this is right where most of your body weight comes down and standing. So be a little tender. Roll the ankle. And then we'll just draw that left leg in. You can hold the back of the thigh, you can hold the front of the shin. How does it feel to lengthen your right waist towards the blanket? And then we'll keep a hold of the right knee and extend the left leg up. Rolling out the left ankle, wiggling the toes. Take your left leg parallel to the floor. And then feel like your leg is trying to drag you forward off the blanket from the groin, from the inner line of that leg. Really lengthen forward. And then you can release the foot down. You might need to bend the knee to do that. And once that left heel touches the ground, go ahead and press it down so the back of your leg wakes up. And then again, think about the inseam of your left leg sliding forward from the groin all the way to the inner arch. Maybe you draw that right knee in a little closer. What if you add a bit more attention to your breath? You can stay right here. You can hold the back of the right thigh and work on extending that right leg towards the ceiling any amount. You could use your strap here, or you could reach up and grab the foot and grab the foot. Both legs are seeing how long they can grow. And they're moving towards a split, even though from the outside it might look nothing like that. But your right leg is intentionally reaching up and then back towards your chest. And your left leg is really intentionally trying to grow away from you and pressing into the floor. And I don't know about you, but when I really think about the leg trying to move in that direction rather than just giving it a little pull, it's a very different experience. And then we'll release. Both feet can come to the floor, supported bridge pose. So notice how you feel. Hug the knees. Cross the left ankle over the right thigh and then massage the left foot. I'm just trying to wake up some of the areas of your foot that might feel a little dull or forgotten. My almost 7-week-old nephew is living with me right now, my brother and his girlfriend, and his feet. There's so much movement available in his feet. So fun to watch. Roll the ankle. You can thread the fingers in between the toes. And a little wiggle. Then we'll come into the figure 4 stretch. And your outer left hip, your left waist can reach towards the blanket a bit, just evening out the size of the waist. Maybe your breath is still moving from the bottom to the top and your exhales are moving out the crown of the head. You could play around with, on those exhales, if you really soften the base of the root of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. Keep a hold of your left knee. Right leg is going to reach up. And we'll take right leg parallel to the floor. And then it's reaching forward. Maybe even pulls you forward a bit. And then you can release the right heel down, press it down. And as the heel presses down, you can continue to slide it forward. Maybe draw that left knee in. As your right leg is sliding forward, it's taking the groin with it. You might even imagine it's taking your right lung with it. That connection all the way up into the rib cage. And then maybe hold the back of your left thigh. Maybe the foot. Maybe strap it up. Both legs actively leaping into that split. And then release. Take the blanket out. Roll to either side, come up to a seat. Actually, come to tabletop. We'll just take a couple rounds of cat-cow. So imagine that you still have that blanket roll right in the middle of your back. So in your cow pose, as you drop the belly down, you can curl your spine around that imaginary blanket. And then as you come into your cat, can you push it to the ceiling? Any movements that would feel good here, maybe there's some side to side action. Come into downward facing dog. Fingers spread, knuckles rooting down. Spread the toes. And as the feet push into the floor, your hips grow a little taller. Your legs are actively trying to grow longer. And there's a little hint of your upper back trying to curl around the blanket roll. And so the fronts of the armpits lift a bit. Step the feet a little closer together and take your right leg back up. And then bring the knee towards the chest, step forward. Help it up there if it needs some help. Maybe blocks under the hands. And you're breathing from the bottom to the top of your spine. Exhale, moving out through the crown of the head. And release the back knee down and release the back toes. And so feel the base of the pose. Right foot, left knee, left foot, all pressing down. Maybe hold the front knee. Maybe take the arms up. And again, could you imagine that blanket roll in your middle back? And as you push off of the ground, draw your spine away from the blanket roll at the same time as you curl back over it. And the fronts of the armpits kind of pour over the tops of the collarbones. We'll bring the hands down. Step back to plank. Lower all the way onto your belly. Forehead to the mat, take your arms down by your sides. You can roll the inner thighs a little towards the ceiling. And then, again, if the blanket roll was right in the middle of your back, you lift your upper spine to curl around it. Arms up. Feel the fronts of the armpits lift up. Legs can lift up. And we're going to keep that back bend. Bring the hands under the shoulders and just tip it back. Once the feet land, pull your heart forward through your upper arms. And then we'll lower down. Press through tabletop and come into downward facing dog. Notice how you feel. Inhale the left leg back and up. Those two legs reaching into the splits. We're not actually going to do splits today. You can do that in your home practice after if you'd like. Bring the knee into the chest and step forward. So coming into your runner's lunge, your hands can be on blocks or the floor. Back leg is nice and strong and straight. The inseam of your back leg is trying to pull you back, even as your front knee moves forward. And then release the back knee, release the back toes. You can keep the hands down on the knee or reach them up. Gaze at one spot or maybe at the tip of your nose. See what it would feel like to imagine curling back over the blanket roll. And we're approaching all of these poses, all these options through the lens of ahimsa, non-harming. So if something doesn't feel safe, you're not going to do it. Hopefully, you're practicing in a way that kind of calms down all the chatter in the mind instead of creating more chaos up there. Let's take one more breath and then bring the hands down, step to plank, and lower all the way onto your belly. Same thing, forehead to the mat, arms down by your sides, curl your upper body off the floor, reach the arms back behind you. Maybe take the legs up. You're going to keep the back bend in the spine, hands come down under the shoulders, and you're just going to tip it back. And once your feet land, your legs are going to reach back behind you and press down as you pull the mat underneath you, slide your chest a little bit further forward. Good. Collarbones spread wide. Fronts of the armpits lift up. Softening the roof of your mouth and your soft palate with your exhales. And then downward facing dog. Step your right foot in between your hands, however many steps it takes to get it up there. And this time we're going to release the back heel down, setting our legs up for warrior one. But before you come up, go ahead and lengthen through the inseam of that left leg, from the groin all the way down, maybe even from the left lung, if you could imagine that, sliding all the way down the left side of the spine into the heel. Get that nice and grounded. And then we'll hold the right hip and take the left arm up. And see how long you can get from the rooting of the left heel up through the left fingertips. If there's any discomfort in the lower back, sometimes you can kind of calm that down by imagining that you have a right leg, a phantom right leg that's doing exactly what your left leg is doing. And so you'll lengthen that phantom leg, and then we'll take the right arm up. Pubic bone is dropping down, away from the lower belly and then slightly underneath you. And your tailbone is dropping down, away from your lower spine and slightly forward underneath you. So they're almost trying to find each other somewhere under the pelvis. And you can grow your spine up a little taller from the spot where those two bones meet. And maybe there's a little bit of a back bend here. Again, that imaginary blanket roll in your middle back. The more you find the root of your left heel and push away from it to grow taller, the more accessible and grounded a back bend will feel here. Good, you guys, take another breath in. Exhale, bring the hands down. Step to plank and lower onto your belly. Coming up into cobra as you inhale. It can be a baby cobra, just lifting the shoulders up. You can come up into full cobra and straighten the arms. Bring the pelvis down, legs reaching back. And then downward facing dog. Breathe in, get nice and long, hips lifting you up and back, belly soft. Exhaling out through the crown of the head, softening the roof of your mouth, softening the root of your tongue. And we'll step the left foot forward, coming into that warrior one prep pose. So your right heel spins down. And you work on just finding the grounding through that right heel by lengthening from the spine down through the groin. Hold the left hip, and we'll take the right arm up. Both feet push the floor away, which should help make you feel a little lighter. And you see how long you can get from the press of the right heel through the reach of the right fingertips. Maybe you grow a phantom left leg, and it does exactly what the right leg is doing. Maybe the left arm comes up. Gaze at one spot or the tip of your nose. Pubic bone and tailbone are seeking each other out, somewhere below your pelvis. And maybe there's a bit of a back bend. That right leg holding you up. The more you bend back, the more strongly that right heel presses into the floor. Bring the hands down and step to the front of the mat. Inhale to lengthen your spine. Pubic bone and tailbone reach back, and your heart and the crown of the head reach forward. And then exhale, fold down. And so we're balancing out the downward rooting and the upward floating energies. The apana, the rooting down, pressing the bones of the feet down. And lifting up, the hips float, belly soft. And your legs are intentionally trying to get longer. They might not get straight, but they're trying to grow longer. If you're pulling on a pair of pants, from the feet all the way up into the hips. Spread the toes. On your next exhale, lower the hips down and back. Inhale the heart forward. Exhale, reach the arms forward. And then inhale, chair pose. Bring the hands to the heart. Take a breath in. And then we're going to exhale and twist to the right. Bring the left elbow outside the right thigh. You can think about your left waist, left back waist wrapping around towards your outer right knee. And your right back waist is kind of peeling up and open. Your tailbone is going to curl down towards the floor a bit, so there's a little bit of flexion in your lower back. If your right knee is pretty close to your left shoulder, you can open up the arms, push the left hand into the floor, and reach the right arm up. Take one more breath. Exhale, fold forward. And then we'll roll up to standing. Get the arms up. And as you exhale, just swing the arms down, pushing the feet into the floor. Feeling the crown of the head reach a little taller. And just pause here, bring your hands to your heart. Feeling your feet on the ground. Inhale, chair pose. Hands to the heart. And we'll twist the other way. Tailbone curling to the floor. Right waist wrapping around towards your left knee, left waist peeling open. And there's effort, but there's not so much effort that you lose the breathing. There's not so much effort that you become more agitated inside your head. Sometimes more effort is just really focusing on the breathing. Let's take one more breath in and then exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lengthen your heart forward. Exhale, plank. Lower onto your belly, or you can catch yourself halfway. Back bend as you inhale. Downward facing dog, exhale. I'm gonna be here for 5 breaths. You take child's pose instead if you'd like. You can just come to kneeling instead if you'd like. And then step your right foot forward and come up for warrior one. And hold your right hip. You know how long you can get from your left heel up through your fingertips. And then we'll take it forward and take the left elbow outside the right thigh. Or left forearm onto the right thigh. And then just pause. Curl your tailbone towards the floor a little bit. Maybe you take your left elbow a little further outside the leg. Palms can come together and you'll find your twist. Left back waist is wrapping towards the outer right knee. Right back waist is opening up. You can play around with, as you twist a little bit more, maybe you lose the grounding of your left heel. How does that feel? What if you reset it? Can you take a couple of breaths where your inhale fills up your spine and your exhale comes out the crown of your head? And then we'll bring the hands down and step to plank. Lower onto the belly. Back bend as you inhale. Downward dog, exhale. Left foot comes forward, warrior one. Yeah, feel your feet as you stand up. Really feel those roots. And you can hold the left hip, take the right arm up, and find that length. You're gonna take all that length, cross into the twist. Little curling of the tailbone down. This is a flexion twist. And that little bit of flexion in your lower spine can help protect the front of your left hip joint. So if you've ever gotten that pinch, you want to really focus on that little bit of curling of your tail. You breathing? The answer is usually yes. You're always breathing. Although we do have those moments where we become like, almost like stunned in the moment, in good and bad ways, where we kind of lose the breath for a second. And there's also that moment if you're in meditation where you just kind of follow the exhale so far down that it feels like you just stop breathing completely. But in general, you're probably breathing. Whether or not you're breathing on purpose is another question. Let's take another breath in and then exhale, unwind the twist. Step back to plank. You can just go right into downward facing dog if you'd like, child's pose, inhaling into your back bend. What feels good? Let's all take child's pose. All right, let's come up to kneeling. You might want some blankets, blocks handy. We're gonna sit in between the heels, maybe on a blanket, maybe on a block, maybe on 2 blocks. It can feel nice to kind of roll the calf muscles out. And then sometimes I like to just sit like this with my thumbs tucked behind my knees for a minute and see if I can relax all of the tissue that's touching my thumbs. If you get knee discomfort in this shape, this can be a nice option. Again, you can be sitting on a block, you can be sitting on multiple blocks. If it's the tops of the feet that are the issue here, if you roll a blanket and just put it under the fronts of the ankles, that can be really helpful. So this is a lot. It's asking quite a bit of the knees, the hips, the thighs. So you can stay right here. You might walk your hands back a bit. Could you imagine any tension in the lower belly and the lower back pouring down through the groins to the floor? You could have hands on blocks behind you. You can lower forearms onto blocks. You could lower down onto your elbows. And as we make our decisions as to where we're going to take this, we're practicing a concept in yoga called viveka kyati. It's discriminating awareness. So what is the right choice in this moment? Not what you wish it could be, not what it maybe used to be, not what it was last week or even this morning, but like right now, what is the right choice for your body in this moment? Maybe you let out. You can have some support under the shoulders, under the head. And we're practicing that discriminating awareness all through the lens of ahimsa. How do I interrupt harm in this moment? And that includes harmful thoughts. Start a conversation with whatever part of your body is talking the loudest right now. Talk to your body like it's your beloved pet. What if you send a couple of breaths down to broaden the bottom of the rib cage? I found this to be so helpful when I'm stressed because my breath gets really stuck up in the chest. And also I think the connection between the diaphragm and the psoas muscles, breathing out really wide like this seems to give some relief to that whole unit. This is really the opposite of how we live, this shape. So it should be no surprise if this is not comfortable. Our body likes to go into the familiar. So let's just take a couple more breaths. And as you feel done, come out in whatever way makes sense. If you're on your back and unwind the legs, come up. We're all going to meet in constructive rest on our backs. So knees bent, feet on the floor. Inhales, moving up the spine, exhales, out through the crown of the head. Releasing your tongue, releasing your soft palate. And then spread your toes, maybe walk your heels in a little closer. Take a breath in. And on your exhale, we'll reach the groins and the knees forward to drag your hips up off the ground. And then on the inhale, you can roll back onto your shoulders, lifting up through the chest. Maybe walk the shoulders underneath you more. And you can grab the outer edges of your mat and pull apart to help bring the shoulders underneath you. If it's available, you can interlace the hands. That might be asking quite a bit of the shoulders. And the inner thighs continue to reach forward as your sacrum presses up. And there's a gentle press into the back of the head. So your neck is on line. Could you make enough space under your upper back that I could put your blanket roll back under there? If we were all practicing in the same space, I dream of this. I dream that we're at Bow Street. And then lower down. You can lower from the top of the spine to the bottom. Take a breath in through the nose. Maybe out through the mouth. Do it a couple more times. Breathing in. Exhale, reach the knees, the groins forward. Inhale. Lifting up through the chest, walking the shoulders underneath. What if you breathe the rib cage out wide here? Your sacrum is reaching up. And you can almost imagine releasing your pubic bone off the front of the pelvis between the legs. And then lower down from the top to the bottom. We'll do one more. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inner thighs, knees forward. Breathe in, lift up through the chest. Lift your upper side ribs towards the ceiling, making space for that blanket roll. And if you're feeling pretty good in the back bend, if your shoulders aren't rumpy, you can take this into a wheel, taking another breath in. You'll exhale, reaching the knees even further forward, like you could drag your shoulders towards your feet, and maybe they even do move in that direction. Pressing down gently through the back of the head and lifting up. In either shape, your sacrum is reaching up. Pubic bone releasing. Breath nice and steady. And when it feels done, come down. Hug the knees. Maybe reach up for happy baby. You take the outer or the inner edges of the feet or grab the big toes. And as you draw down with the feet, press your sacrum into the floor. Maybe grab the big toes and take a wide V with the legs. Legs being active participants, trying to reach into this wide V. And then come up to a seat. Some of you might be able to hold your feet and roll up in the wide V. Bring props around for that. We're going to take the legs wide again once we come up. So setting up for a wide-legged forward fold. And as we did in the beginning, you can reach back and draw your sit bones back and diagonal behind you. You can roll thighs, inner thighs down, outer thighs back a bit. And then check it out. Maybe the hips need to be elevated on the blanket. Maybe they would just like to be. And then we'll press the bones of the legs down. So tops and bottoms of your thigh bones press into the floor. Shin bones press down, heels press down. Maybe walk a little bit forward. And as you walk forward, if you lose the grounding of your sit bones, you're going to press them down again. Imagine your tailbone could curl down. And then maybe it moves slightly forward underneath your pelvis, like we did in some of the standing poses. Could you imagine your pubic bone dropping down and sliding back behind you or back underneath you? And the front side of your spine, your tailbone, the front of your sacrum, the front of your lumbar spine slides forward. Legs actively try to grow longer. Following your breath down into the quiet at the bottom of your exhale. And then with your inhale, you can roll up to a seat. And legs in, just give your knees a hug. And then let's lie back, set up for Shavasana. Using all of your props so that you can feel held here. And so for me, that just means kind of filling in any of the space between my body and the floor. Maybe a blanket roll at the neck, maybe a roll behind the knees. Feel the space you take up. Feel how you're held. And imagine the bones of your body could drop into the back side of your body and nestle into the inner back lining. Like pearls in an oyster. Just imagine that, all your bones held. And all of your joints, just for this moment, could let go a bit. Creating space between the bones. And any residual tension, any patterns of holding, drain out the space between the bones. And with each exhale, your bones become heavier. All that tension draining out. Any unhelpful thoughts draining out. It's almost like when you let the water out of the tub and you stay in until it's empty, all your bones getting heavier and heavier. Take a long breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And let your attention come back up to the surface. Feel the air in your skin. Please feel free to stay. Or hug the knees. Roll to either side and come up to a seat. Letting your breath adjust your spine. Inhaling from the bottom to the top, exhaling out through the crown. And then maybe bring the hands to the chest, and palms together in prayer, and we'll close out practice by chanting one Om. Thank you so much.